Greetings, everyone, and thank you once again for stopping by the Infidel Guy real audio show brought to you by freespeech.org. Don't know how much longer, but we'll see what happens. Thank you all once again for joining us. Well, this evening we have a special guest. His name is Eric Snyder, the current president and chair of the board for the Secular Student Alliance. So this should be pretty interesting. Eric has received a music scholarship, and later he switched his degree several times before choosing a degree that I fancy, philosophy. He was the president of the University of Minnesota Atheists and Humanists, and is now the group's advisor. In his free time, he spends his time as an office manager for a legal recruiting firm, and he likes to read, which I like to do. He's into sports, as I am, more recreational type sports, and fly airplanes. That's interesting. I'm assuming maybe he means model planes, but we'll find out more about Eric Snyder as we continue throughout the show. Thank you very much, Eric, for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Well, the SSA, what is that about?
What is that about? Well, the short story is that the Secular Student Alliance is not even a year old. We went public last May, and the board is mostly composed of former members of the Campus Free Thought Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go into that if you'd like.
Okay.
And we started the group because we thought that what we really needed to focus on in this whole youth movement was developing organizing and activist expertise. And each of our board members is committed to hanging around for at least 3 to 5 or more years. And we felt that kind of focus was really needed to kickstart the student movement. And currently, we have a few plans, which we're going to be announcing shortly.
Okay.
And it is a program called the Secular 100, which is a campaign to launch student groups on the 100 largest campuses around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, we're going to be launching a program, hopefully, if our grant proposal goes through, which will basically be an information system that'll really benefit us in developing this network of people to help student groups and keeping track of all the information that goes into that.
Okay, interesting. How long has this organization been in existence?
Since May of 2000.
Since May of 2000? Okay. I'm writing that down here. What is the membership base looking like so far? Or how many campuses do you have involved right now?
Okay. Yeah, I guess it depends on how you define membership.
Okay. Individuals and individual groups.
As far as individual groups, I think we have about a dozen.
Wow.
Up to this point, it hasn't really been our focus so far to really concentrate on supporting student groups because we've been really busy building the infrastructure of the organization.
Okay.
Once we get the Secular 100 program off the ground, this is going to be our opportunity to really expand and increase our membership. I guess you could include this under the title of membership. We have an advisory board, which is composed of a number of people, freethinkers around the country, including Christopher Hitchens, a writer for The Nation magazine and Vanity Fair, and Richard Dawkins, of all people, plus a few other names that some people might know.
Oh, Richard Dawkins, okay.
Yeah.
That would be great to have him on the show sometime as well. Do you reach out to high schools at all? Or what I'm sure you focus on college level, but do you focus on high school? Do you work with high schools as well?
We do. Currently, we have 4 high school groups that we've helped in some way get off the ground. Now, 4 high schools out of the tens of thousands of high schools around the country,
mm-hmm.
It's not a lot to speak of, but we have to start someplace. Our original mission was to really focus on the college campuses because, in a way, that's a lot easier to tackle. Students are free to do whatever they want as far as setting up their own clubs. The campus is an open academic environment as opposed to the high school, which is much more strictly controlled by school administrators. But we do have a focus on high school groups, but this is a very difficult area. A lot of high school students we found have difficulty starting their own groups. If they put up flyers, let's say, around their campus, they're torn down. Or maybe even the administration won't let them keep them up. We even had one situation where a student group was told that their existence was not really appreciated. And I think this actually came down from the district administrator of the school. So with those kind of roadblocks, it's going to be an uphill battle for us to try to get a lot of groups going on high school campuses, but we're definitely interested in doing it.
Okay. Well, where do you see the future of the Secular Students Alliance? How do you see it forming? I'm sure of course, you're involved in this for the long run, I'm assuming, and you'd like to see it expand. But what are your, I can't think of the term I'm looking for, but where would you like to see these SSA in the future? I know you mentioned the 100, and what exactly is going on right now to implement these programs that you plan on getting involved in?
Well, a lot of the planning. We're training our board members. We're going to divide this task up between our 10 current board members and volunteers. We're going to sort of divide up the country based on where these campuses are located and assign board members to tackle these campuses. We're going to make a huge national announcement and try to rally the entire free thought community behind this program, which is, I think, what we really have to do to see that a lot of these campus groups can, first of all, get started, and secondly, be sustainable over time. Because one thing that we find, if a campus group doesn't take certain steps, they're liable to fold in, a couple of years. Some of those steps would include finding an advisor, let's say, either on the campus or outside. One thing that helps a lot is if you have a local free thought group that can provide them with financial assistance. This way they can put on some higher quality programs, so that's very essential. But the devil is in the details. There's a lot of work that's going to go into this, and we're all pretty excited about it. Okay.
Well, what advice would you have for, I'm sure there are many high school students and college level students listening to the show. What type of advice would you give them because I have many high school students contact me and they're trying to start a local organization, and I give them a lot of advice, but what would you recommend for those students who are trying to get out there, who are trying to spread free thought? What type of advice would you give them?
I think my first piece of advice would be that they have to recognize the power of an organization on a campus to really amplify their voice. It's one thing, let's say, to put up your own website or to engage in your own singular debates online in whatever forum that might take place in. It's one thing to, let's say, send letters to the editor of your newspaper, but if you can join or start a group on your campus, that is a very effective way to contributing to this whole movement. Because right now, one of the major underlying problems in terms of getting humanist ideas, humanist, atheist, skeptic, free thought ideas into the marketplace and noticed and appreciated by more people is simply just getting their attention. Most people have no idea that there's an activist atheist movement out here. And have a long way to go in terms of developing a grassroots movement and really bring this message to more people. Really, the secular humanist movement, and everyone is sort of aware of this if they've been in this long enough, it's a graying movement. It's very academic.
Okay.
In some ways, it's elitist. And you know this. You've seen this yourself, I'm sure. This does not appeal to a lot of people. A lot of people have not heard of it. We really have to take this to the grassroots, and the best place to go is college campuses. So if you would like to really contribute to what I think is a fairly quickly growing movement, which is still in its beginning stages, then contact us, please, by all means, and we can help you get your group going and give you all sorts of advice that we've accumulated over the years. So that'd be my first piece of advice.
Okay. Well, for those of you just coming in, we're with Eric Snyder. He is the president and chair of the board with the Secular Student Alliance. Why do we need the SSA? I mean, aren't there plenty of other groups out there? I mean, what about the Campus Free Thought Alliance? Are they doing what you're doing?
The Campus Free Thought Alliance is doing what we're doing, but we're different still.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps I can get into some of the details as to why we left our affiliation with the Council for Secular Humanism.
Okay.
First of all, we feel that the model that the CFA uses right now, which can be effective and has been somewhat effective in the past. One of the central problems with it, though, is that you get students who don't have any prior experience in campus organizing and any experience really in this free thought movement. They come into the organization and they leave within a year or two. And then you get a bunch of new blood. And these students come in and they basically have to try to reinvent the wheel. We wanted to get away from that system. And we wanted to bring onto the board people who've been around for a while, people who've started their own groups, people who've been involved with groups for a while, and allow them the opportunity to, over a span of years, develop the kind of deep knowledge and expertise that would allow them to really make a big difference in terms of the professional kind of services and advising that they can give student groups.
Okay.
We also felt it was important that the students run their own organization. When we were involved with the Campus Free Thought Alliance, we really had no control over the budget at all. None of us, therefore, were in a position to develop any expertise in terms of, let's say, fundraising, financial management, let's say, or really taking responsibility for the decisions of an organization. So we felt that was important that we gain that kind of expertise, because ideally, 5-10 years down the road, when a lot of these students who are involved with these current groups get out into the workforce, they gain professional experience and so forth, I really think we're going to see a flowering of a variety of different humanist organizations sprouting up. And we would like to be in a position to be able to offer some kind of expertise from our experience to these groups that come up. Another central reason why we're a little bit different from the CFA, and this is one of the reasons why we broke off from the CSH, was that we wanted to develop cooperative relationships with all the humanist groups out there, from the Atheist Alliance to the AHA to the International Humanist and Ethical Union, to anyone who basically shared our same philosophy. We found this to be very problematic with the CSH. And currently we have established a number of ties with a whole range of groups that we quite likely could not have done under the auspices of the CSH and, associate with it. So that would be the second main reason.
Okay.
I guess as for the differences between the organizations, yes, we both focus on campuses, and we both focus on trying to get groups going. But I think over time, it'll be telling what the strengths of each group is. The CFA has a lot of resources that we currently don't have because we're a young organization. But one thing that we hope to develop and hope to use to distinguish ourselves from other organizations is our level of expertise in campus organizing. We have quite a focus on that currently in our organization, insofar as board members are encouraged to further their own professional interests within the organization, whether it's in fundraising or campus activism or whatever.
Okay. Well, okay. I know that SSA means secular students, but what is a secular student? What type of people do you attract to your group? Primarily atheists or humanists, people who identify themselves as agnostic, or what is your group composed of, and who all can be a part of this? I'm sure maybe everyone, I guess, but what is your membership composed of as far as what people can call themselves?
Probably no surprises here. We have atheists, we have agnostics, like you said, we have humanists, we have secular humanists. We have people who label themselves naturalists, which seems to be an increasingly popular label. Skeptics. I haven't yet encountered anyone who calls himself a religious humanist, though. That's probably a minority designation.
Right. Well, I see how secular could actually expand to a lot more different groups. Do you think that may be the reason for a lot of the group's success is its name and its purpose, of course? But do you think the name has a lot to do with it?
I see your point. Yeah, the name was chosen for the reason that we wanted to be a little more open. Some people really like the term atheist. It really sort of represents their philosophical outlook, whereas others think that maybe that's sort of limiting, and that perhaps we need to expand this philosophical view to include some other values and perspectives, so that they might call themselves humanists. So we wanted to, be as broad as possible. We didn't want to exclude those who maybe call themselves atheists. We didn't want to exclude those who call themselves humanists. And I know there are some minor disagreements out there between some of these groups, and we wanted to try to transcend that and say, whatever your brand of skepticism within certain limits, we're here for you. We're inclusive.
Yeah, that's great. I've noticed even myself here, as being this internet web host here, I really get a lot of flack from many of the agnostics, and I don't know why. And it's amazing that you can all come together and work some things out. Well, would you categorize your group more toward a atheistic or skeptical, or what do you think is the dominant description there? No stats on that yet, huh?
What's that?
No stats on that yet, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear you.
There's no statistics on that, no stats. You haven't done any research, or there's nothing?
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay.
That's one thing we're very interested in. In fact, we're going to do that at some point, because I think that's very useful to see where people are at and what they think. Just among the board members, I think the term free thought comes up the most. However, that just is sort of a term of convenience, because we don't want to get into all the the possible issues associated with other terms. Terms like secular and free thought seem to be the most broad and seem to be the most agreeable to people. So, and in the interest of just being efficient and getting to the point and getting work done, we tend to promote those terms.
I hear rumors that the original term free thought actually was a religious word. Have you heard the same thing? Was utilized by religionists at first.
That wouldn't surprise me. I haven't really done my homework on that.
Okay.
But I think I've heard the same thing. Okay,
well, you have someone in the room here asking a question. I don't know if you're in the room as well, but they're wondering, what is your current education now? Are you in college now, or?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you did graduate with your degree in philosophy, correct?
I wish I could say that I did.
Okay.
I actually probably have 20 or 30 credits beyond what's needed for a Bachelor of Arts. I've taken extra coursework in music, history, political science, English, and psychology.
Okay.
Just because I couldn't decide on what I wanted to do. And the thing that held me up was my foreign language degree, which I still haven't completed, and knows when I'll do it.
Well, I'm looking for someone to do a new theme song for me, so maybe you can help out with that.
Sure.
Okay. Well, what kind are there any laws that protect student groups, help them form, or to what extent or what lengths could a school go to prevent a group from forming? And are there any laws out there that protect student groups like the ones you're trying to help form in colleges all over the nation?
And this is an area that we're still becoming experienced in. If any students are interested in this, I'd encourage them to go to the ACLU website. They have a lot of good resources there for students and student rights. That would probably be the first place that we're going to go ourselves. We confront these kind of issues. As I mentioned before, we had that one circumstance in which the student group was facing difficulty in getting organized. And so I believe the person, Stephanie Kermer, who's our director of high school for SSA, I believe she referred that person to Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. And currently, I think the problem is still sort of where it was before.
I remember we mentioned, of course, off air that there was a particular incident in which a school was so bigoted about having a atheistic club And due to certain laws, they decided to go on ahead and just eradicate all clubs at their school so that an atheistic club could not even be allowed in the school.
Yeah, that's rather extreme, don't you think?
That's pretty extreme. Of course, considering I'm sure there were more than one Christian club in the school, and just so that they would not have to abide by the law as it pertains to an atheistic club, they decided to simply eradicate all clubs. That's
troubling. It shows the depth of the fear of these school administrators.
Mm-hmm.
I can just imagine the concerned parents in the community hearing that there's some atheist club, and the principal getting phone calls, and the district administrator getting calls and concern letters and so forth. But if a school wants to punish all the students just to prevent a few ideas getting into the school environment, I would say that's a very sad situation. I think certainly at the high school level, I wouldn't see any reason why not. Students should be allowed to pursue their interests as long as they have a clear educational and academic component, which I think an atheist, an agnostic, or humanist student groups certainly would.
Where do you think this fear comes from? Why are they so afraid of us? And what could we do to reverse that?
Well, it's partly a generational thing. I think some of the older generations still have this equation in their mind between atheists and communists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I still occasionally hear from people, maybe 45 on up. That's something you don't really hear among young people anymore today for obvious reasons. What you do hear is that atheists are out to destroy the family, or they're out to promote the occult or Satanism, or they're, promotive of relativism, all these social ills that, especially the Christian right likes to ascribe to, atheists and secular humanists.
Mm-hmm.
It's really misunderstanding. It's really the psychology of the other, of the alien. It's really the fault of the human nature of the average person not having the self-critical capacity to see the common humanity of all people and understand that some other people just might have different ideas about cosmology and the way human life is. So what can we do about it?
Mm-hmm.
I think that what the SSA is doing, what the CFA is doing, and what all these free thought groups are doing, that is public outreach, is something we just have to keep on doing. But we have to do it better. We have to reach more people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the only thing that we can do. We have to educate people.
Okay. Well, playing the I was going to say devil's advocate.
Go right ahead.
I've heard, and this really upsets me, and I really want your opinion on this. I'm sure you've heard the same. How do you respond to someone, and what do you have to tell individuals out there who believe that all we have to do is just leave believers alone? This is what I've heard. Mm-hmm. That we can just stick to ourselves and it'll all go away by itself. I've heard this a lot. We don't need to debate. We don't need to go out and spread reason. We don't need to start local groups. We can just stick to ourselves, and religion will somehow destroy itself. Have you heard this before?
Yeah, I've definitely heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a problematic view for the reason that I don't think that the Enlightenment and the process of secularization is something that's necessarily destined to take place. I don't think that religion is something that's naturally going to be defanged over time. It's not something that's naturally going to wither away and leave us free to be citizens who respect each other's differences and can flourish in an environment in which religious liberty is promoted. I think that's just a fundamentally flawed view. I think any change that happens in society requires that people be actively involved in critiquing those aspects of a culture with which they disagree and pointing a way to a better future. And I'd like to talk to more people that have that view, because I'd really like to understand that. Because I've heard that too, and I frankly don't understand it.
Well, does the SSA have an official standpoint as it pertains to religion, as far as its feelings, or are you designed to? I know you don't. I know you're not designed to attack religion, but does the SSA have any particular standpoint professionally on religion itself? I've heard your individual view, but
our official policy is that we would like to see both in the public square and in more so at our educational institutions, whether that's formally in curricula or if it's just on campus. We would like to see free thought ideas made available to more people. If you're suggesting that perhaps our view on religion is that we come down on certain issues definitively, I would say, if anyone were to say, I know for absolute truth that there is no God or that Christianity is wrong, so forth, we would tend to shy away from that language.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is what we tend to think, and this is, I believe, where the best evidence points to. However, really the process is what is most important. And so the SSA is not so much of an advocacy organization as it is an educational organization. I would, if at some future point, let's say most people just around the world were free thinkers or atheists or agnostics, that to me wouldn't necessarily be a better world. I think it'd be a much better place if people were critical thinkers, if people were more capable of being self-critical, if they were more curious about things. And, even if atheists were still in the minority in that kind of culture, I think just by the very fact that people were much more free thinking, that would probably solve a lot of problems right there.
Well, you mentioned educating the public about critical thinking skills, etc. But what exactly do you educate about? What topics exactly do you educate on?
Well, the first thing that we're going to educate on, we do have some educational plans, but these are very long-term plans. The first real educational challenge we have is helping student free thinkers manage their own groups. Get groups started, train them how to run effective meetings, put on events, and help plug them into the free thought movement and a lot of the ideas and issues that we all confront. That's really our big educational effort for probably the next couple of years, I'd say. Okay.
Well, what type of criticism do you get? I'm sure you get some. I would like to hear some of the criticism that you receive, that the SSA receives or has received.
Okay.
I know. Do you have any fundies jump down your throat and say, you old fart, you already graduated. Why are you still harassing these students and trying to perverse their young, holy minds? Or what type of stuff did you get?
We definitely get some of that. We haven't gotten as much as like the internet infidels. They get a ton of that stuff. One of our board members is with the internet infidels, and I think she gets like 10 email messages a day from outraged fundamentalists. We haven't quite gotten to that stage yet, and I think when we do, what we might do is put up a place on our website where we post some of these, because I think it's very instructive to show the mentality of some of the people who are most vociferously opposed to us. But a couple things that come to mind just from the past couple of months. Got an email from Muslim fundamentalist. And right off the bat, he tried to use the example of walking away from his computer and the computer on its own coming up with words.
Just a variation of the watchmaker argument, basically. But, yeah, they use. I think I might have had a conversation with the same fundamentalist Muslim.
Yeah, some of them are pretty vocal and they like to get attention.
But please continue. I'm sorry.
And it's the same creationist fallacy that we hear continually, which is the mischaracterization of evolution as nothing other than a random process, and no evolutionary scientist who believes that that's all there is to it. But yet it seems to be stuck in the collective craw of most fundamentalists.
Mm-hmm.
So this Muslim guy sent me this email and a few other people and set out to disprove evolution in a couple of pages. And by the end of it, he was quoting the Quran and apparently thinking that, his arguments were so convincing that we were going to join him in praising Allah. I didn't even bother reading it. I've seen a lot of this stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is very typical. They're not very well versed. I've noticed that many groups they specialize in debating other religionists, but not necessarily debating a free thinker. And they have a lot of difficulty doing that. And it really all comes down to, well, you just got to believe. As my grandfather had told this individual who was going to preach to him the gospel and prove to him the glory of God. And he told him that by the end of this discussion, you're going to tell me that you just have to believe. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened at the end of the debate. He's ranting and yelling, you just have to believe. And I get a lot of that hate mail too, and I don't understand what spawns it. And if anyone can correct me, if any of the listeners here can assist me here, my website is particularly, I get at least maybe 10 hate mails a day, and they're always telling me that my site is so full of hate. And I asked for them to copy and paste that to me so I can find out where this hate is that they're talking about. But of course, they went right to the message board. I can't control what people put in the message board. Goodness.
Right.
But
it's hard to know what's really behind this. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it is about the religious believer that compels so many of them to react so violently to people that disagree with them. Part of it, and I know this is just one piece of a much bigger picture, part of it is that really none of their beliefs are open to investigation. If they were, then we would all be in agreement with them. But we can't interview God, if there is such a thing. We can't find out, did you actually write the Bible? Do you even give a crap about the Bible? Is it really the case that God hates fags, or is he a little more humane and intolerant? We can't investigate it. So therefore, the religious believer falls upon basically dishonest inquiry, namely reliance upon revelation, reliance upon mystical experience. And both of these are notoriously subjective. You can't go to the source from which you get your propositions about the world,
right,
and expect that other people are going to agree with you. And if you're accustomed to seeing the world through the, quote, eyes of faith, it seems fairly easy to me to understand why, and there's a lot more to it than this too, but people just don't have time for reason. In their minds, these are settled.
You know what I call it, Eric? I call it fantasy.
Yeah.
Because fantasies are great. And I think once an individual gets so wrapped up in his fantasy and has turned that fantasy into reality, that's hard to pry away from someone.
It really is.
Just have a question here, but I think I know the answer to this one. Would students at a private school have legal recourse if they were denied the right to form a group? Doubt it.
I don't think they would have like a recourse. However, there's an interesting story from the University of St. Thomas here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. There's now a group there. They've been around there for a year and a half. They're called the University of St. Thomas Alliance of Humanists and Freethinkers, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
They very much had to tone down what they really stood for to get acceptance. They had to go through 2 or 3 committees of review to get to the point where they were an officially recognized student group. But they got it. And now they're on campus. However, they do have to sort of watch themselves. I remember last year there was a little bit of controversy. They had Bob Price speak, and for those of you who don't know him, if you can ever hear the guy speak, I'd highly encourage you to do so. Bob Price is sort of like the Noam Chomsky of biblical criticism. The guy's just utterly brilliant. Anyway, he was on this campus, and I got a call from the student who was leader of that group, and apparently one of the more pious faculty was a little bit concerned about this and wanted to have a meeting to review what the group's mission was. They came out of that pretty much unscathed, but things are a little bit more tricky on private colleges, especially since a lot of them are religious. However, a lot of religious universities have a fairly diverse student body, and you do have typically a faculty which is committed to academic freedom and really doesn't like the idea of oath-taking, or at least they somewhat bridle at it. So don't let that deter you if you want to get going. The main advantage to being recognized at a private institution, or
Mm-hmm.
at any institution for that matter, is it makes you, it avails you of potential university funding for your events. That really doesn't happen so much at the University of Minnesota, but it does at the University of St. Thomas. But even if you don't get official acceptance, you can still usually put up flyers around campus, meet with other students. You might even be able to rent a classroom to hold an event, that kind of thing. So.
Interesting. You mentioned oaths earlier, and it's off topic, but it's funny. I see that a lot. In the military, I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and we had to hold up our hands to God and swear ourselves onto His omnibenevolent will. And it's funny. The book of Matthew in here states that no one should swear at all. And I'm sitting here, and I did not discover this until I became a freethinker. It's really sad. And do you think that there are a lot of undercover freethinkers, atheists in the collegiate structure, and they're just afraid to come out due to being ostracized by their school, or do you, in other words, do you think our numbers are a lot bigger than what the researchers have shown?
I guess I'm not optimistic about the number of atheists in our country. Some people will say that atheists number about 11% of the population. I'm not sure if I accept that. I think that might be rather high.
Really?
But I think the story is quite a bit different at universities. One of the philosophy professors at the U of M had a conversation with the U of M atheist and humanist president a few years back, and he estimated that perhaps as many as half of the faculty on that campus were non-believers. And that begs the question, why aren't they out of the closet? Why aren't they joining these groups and helping us out? I think there are a few reasons for that. One would be that I don't believe that many of the professors see humanism as really maybe a sufficiently rich organizing principle, through which to really engage with the world. Professors might be committed to, let's say, progressive political causes. Perhaps humanism or atheism is seen as just sort of tangential to that. Other professors think that it's not in the interest of honest and disinterested inquiry to be turning these kinds of issues into activist causes. And that, having said that, it's more complicated than that, and I disagree with that view quite a bit. But that'd be something that you probably commonly hear too. Yeah,
I actually have a little short story about that, but I won't destroy my listeners' ears with it. But I knew a few professors in college as well who were atheists. As a matter of fact, I went to one Catholic school, and the director was an atheist. And actually, he encouraged me to take a class. He could tell by the way I thought. I took a few courses in philosophy, and right about my fourth course in philosophy, he told me, "How would you like to take a course in atheism?" Well, and you won't believe the textbook. It was George H. Smith, The Case Against God. Atheism, The Case Against God. And I took this, and I read this book, and as I opened the pages, I couldn't believe it. Everything that was in it was everything that I was afraid to ask. But this person was asking the questions and answering them. And he didn't have a problem with it. And I began to realize at that point that I was a freethinker. I was a non-believer. and I really thank my professor, who's also a professor, and also the director for the school. I really thank him a lot. If it wasn't for him, I don't know what, I would still be believing today. And after that, and that's why I see groups like yours. We need more groups like yours. We need people out there doing things. These professors and these educators need to get the courage to come out, and we need it. I needed it. We need more people out there.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. The question really comes down to, what kind of world would you like to live in? Would you like to live in a world in which, for instance, Nancy Reagan consulted an astrologer to determine the dates for meetings of state? Do we want to live in a culture in which 20% of the population does not know that the Earth travels about the sun, but thinks it's just the opposite? Do we want to live in a culture in which approximately 50% of the population believes that the Earth is about 6,000 years old? One could go on and list all sorts of really depressing statistics about the public's ignorance about science and critical thinking. And this is not merely academic. In one sense, I really don't care what other people think, because it's really none of my business, and I tend to be someone who thinks that my personal freedom is just as important as the freedom of my neighbor. However, ideas have consequences, and if you have a population which is given to magical thinking, which is very easily swayed by authority, which is accustomed to a non-epistemology of faith and revelation and taking orders from a priesthood, I don't see this as being very compatible with democratic ideals. Democracy is most dangerous when people are ignorant. And I think in our culture, we have a long way to go before we get to the point where most people really fully and seriously take responsibility for educating themselves and thinking seriously about the universe and their place within it.
Okay. Well, for those of you just tuning in, we are with Eric Snyder. He is the current president and director of the board with the Secular Student Alliance. And we're nearing we've passed the top of the hour now, but because we started a little later, if you don't mind, Eric, we're going to stay on for about another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's fine.
And answer a few questions here that the listeners may have. Well, we have one question from Bain. He asks, would you support member groups getting involved in creation science controversies in their respective schools? Maybe debating, etc. Yes,
it's a qualified yes.
Okay. So now some people believe that debating is useless. What is your take on that?
It's really hard to say. I think to come down strongly that it's useless, that position does have some merits, because it's well known that debates really don't change a lot of people's minds. Debates are sort of boxing matches. I think that's the way that a lot of people see them. At the same time, debates of that nature should not be seen as just solely a clash between those who are supporting science and those who are defending pseudoscience. They should be also seen as organizing opportunities, and also opportunities for getting basically the community of unbelievers out to the public, to impress upon the public that indeed there are people out there who don't believe. I think our general advice, that the general SSA advice on debates of that type, are that, yeah, you're probably not going to get everyone walking out of there thinking that, Darwin's black box is really not all it's cracked up to be, or Philip Johnson has some very questionable views. I think the idea that we're trying to get across to student groups is these are the best opportunities that you have to distribute literature, which goes way beyond just the creation evolution debate and touches on a whole bunch of topics that are of relevance to free thinkers, especially church-state separation. And they're also excellent opportunities to attract members to your group.
Okay.
So I would suggest that if any debate is proposed, make sure that you have someone who can adequately take on some of the creationist debaters. For instance, Duane Gish, I would go so far as to say, and I'll dare say this in public, that
well, you are.
Don't believe he's not entirely honest in his approach to this whole issue. and I could find a lot of evolutionists who have debated him who would back me up on that. So you have to have someone who is very savvy to the tactics that some of these people use. If you do, then my advice is go for it.
Okay. Well, Bain later adds he was talking more about state and local school boards, courts, etc. I guess the legal battles and things of that nature. Would you support that type of activity? I'm sure you would, though.
What kind of activity?
We said state and local school boards. I guess Bain will need to specify exactly what. But again, this is in reference to the creation evolution controversies in your school.
Uh-huh.
And also, would you support them in, for instance, activism? Activism activities outside courtrooms, things of that nature. But of course, I'm assuming the question would be yes, of course.
Yeah, to the extent that we think that we could achieve clear objectives, clear goals. Mm-hmm. It all depends on the circumstance.
Oh, well, yeah.
There's not much that any local group or even us collectively can do to change, let's say, Supreme Court case law on anything from church-state separation to creation evolution. However, I wonder if it might be possible to do things, for instance, such as building a network of educators, public policy people, and legislators to try to improve science standards around the country. There was a very interesting paper published by the James Fordham Foundation, and you can go to their website, which I believe is www.edexcellence.com .org. And the study was about the teaching of evolution around the country, and they sent a letter grade to states based upon the quality of their science standards. And a lot of states have very, very poor science standards. They exclude any mention of the dreaded E word.
Right. Evolution.
Even the state of Minnesota, which is known as a generally progressive state, our science standards talk about change over time. And in the biological sciences, they don't mention the word evolution. So even basic things like that need to really be taken seriously and addressed. Mm-hmm.
So, and what do you think? And the best way to address those issues, man, how can we do this? How can we educate? As I've mentioned earlier, debates, and you have stated that debates do not necessarily change one's mind that much. Maybe 1% of a person's mind will be swayed to a particular side. So,
right.
What medium do we have? What can we do? How can we educate? If they're steadily trying to take this stuff out of our schools, what do you think? The local clubs that we try to form, you think maybe we can bring some people in that way? What's your take? How can we make these changes?
I guess my first answer to that would be that the kind of changes that we'd like to bring about are long-term. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the prospects of the free thought community having enough clout to get anything done at the legislative level is virtually nil in most cases.
Okay.
It's not always the case. I mean, I think it's very encouraging the extent to which free thinkers were involved in booting out the two creationists on the Kansas State School Board. That's very encouraging.
Okay.
But I think what we really have to think about is our long-term strategy. We really have to think about how it is we're going to maximize our educational impact. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get humanist, free thought, atheist literature into as many people's hands as possible?
Okay.
And if we concentrate on that, I think that we're going to see, it's going to bear a lot of fruit down the road. And we really haven't even begun to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks to the web.
Yeah, thanks to the web is a huge boon to this whole effort. And I actually don't think the SSA could have gotten off the ground if it weren't for the internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, many groups have, of course, made the exact same statement. Even the CFA has confessed to that as well. And of course, even I myself would not have been able to do what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for godless technology. But well, you mentioned a person that I would mention and I'm sure you've heard of him. I featured him on the show, I think a week ago. Rob Sherman, have you heard of him?
Yes.
Well, he was on the show and had a lot of things to say about the election and what his role is in his new organization that he started, National Atheists. And he talks about basically that his group, National Atheists, is formed or have the ability to provide legal backing. And he talks about the ACLU and other groups that are okay, but he talks about how the national atheists are going to be that group that is for atheists, by atheists, and are really going to help keep a separation of church and state. And that would be one person definitely. If you all have not contacted them, I think that would be a good individual to get with there. I'd
be interested in talking to him.
Wow, he's really, really energetic about the whole thing. He was a great guest, and I'm really glad I had him on. And I'm sure some of the guests listening now can remember what a lot of some of the things he had to say were really, really breathtaking. Of course, one of which he talked about the election, as I mentioned a second ago. How do you think that election is going to affect us free thinkers when Bush gets in office?
It'll be good and bad.
Okay.
Anytime that someone gets into the presidency, people have to remember that the president is not the one that is necessarily writing the legislation, or if the president is someone who is appointing people to cabinet positions. And in these cabinet positions, they can get involved in all sorts of mischief. So that's something to look out for. I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to who gets into these positions and what kinds of action they're taking. I'm especially concerned about the Supreme Court, as I'm sure a lot of people are. My greatest fear, and I don't know how realistic this is in the next 4 years, is if we get a couple of people retiring and a couple more people on the court, like Rehnquist or Scalia, that these people really, really, I think are rather extreme. If you don't know much about the Supreme Court, I'd encourage listeners to do a little bit of reading on some of the opinions. And I think you'd be surprised at how shrill Scalia and Thomas, for instance, can be. It's really remarkable that people like that are on the court with the kind of extreme views that they do have. And there could very well be some sea changes in our culture if we got a couple more conservatives on the court like that.
Yeah, I call those people Pat Robertson's boys.
Exactly. And in some fundamental ways, they're not much different. At the same time, if that kind of thing were to happen, a lot of people would, I think, rebel against that. They're going to be really disgusted with what they see going on, and I think we can all expect that a lot of the free thought groups around the country are really going to see their membership rolls increase.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's pretty much like the teenager and the painful grip of the dogmatic parent, or the you get that resistance from someone trying to squeeze their belief into you. And I think that the American people will see that same thing. And many of these believers, the Christians, I have to call them out, the Christians who claim they want things to go back to the way the Bible was and all these things, they have not a clue as to what that would entail if that were to occur. And I think, and I've heard Christians tell me as atheists, the more that we push, the worse things will get. I'm sure you heard the same thing. But I think also the inverse. I think the more they push, the worse things they make for themselves. Because I found out that's why people bounce from church to church. They're looking for a place where they can feel more free. And, of course, what more free place to be than be a free thinker. But I think that'll definitely cause people to change their belief systems or modify them. And I'm sure you've noticed that the New Age movements are really picking up. And I think that's a result of that grip, of this the theocratic grip that they're trying to spawn.
It's really strange what's going on with religion in this country. The Enlightenment liberal, the secular liberal, thinks in theory that there shouldn't be any reason with the march of science that religion should be maintaining its grip as it is. We look at Europe and find that there are a large number of atheists, a large number of atheists that are out of the closet, and this is non-controversial. The Church of England is on its deathbed and is going to be cadaverous in a few decades.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not happening here, and it's interesting to think about why that's the case. Which one is the natural progression?
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, New Age beliefs are proliferating.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the mainline churches are losing members.
That's right.
And a lot of the conservative fundamentalist churches are gaining.
Yeah, they try to hold on to those traditional American values, right?
Yeah, something like that, whatever. Just my small hometown of Wausau, Wisconsin, I heard about a Roman Catholic church that was bringing back the Latin Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an occasional reader of a paper called The Wanderer, which is a right-wing Catholic paper, which is published in St. Paul, Minnesota. And they report on a small resurgence of churches that are using Latin in their services. Mm-hmm. So, you have people who are, especially younger people, who are sort of cafeteria spiritualists. They sort of pick and choose from among a lot of different views. At the same time, you have,
mm-hmm.
what seems to be a movement back towards conservatism. So how this will all play out in the future, it's anyone's guess. Whether the 21st century will be the century of religion and faith, or whether it will be the century of the semi-final triumph of secularism, who knows?
Mm-hmm. Well, the hour's up. Eric, it was great having you on the show. Well, I guess you would like to leave some information with our listeners so they can know how to contact you and how to get to the website.
Yes, thanks for having me. If you would like more information about the Secular Student Alliance, if you have any questions for me, my address is on the site. The site is www.secularstudents.org. I would encourage any students out there who are in high school or in college, and if you're thinking of starting your own student group, please contact us. We'd love to hear from you, and we can provide you with all sorts of resources that you might not otherwise be able to get.
Yes, and if any of the listeners are high school dropouts, well, convince the other people in high school. No. Well, we need all the help we can get, right? And once again, for the listeners, the link is actually on the page there on his write-up there. You can click on that link, and it'll take you directly to their website. Well, once again, thank you very much for stopping by the Infidel Guy audio show, and thank you, Eric, for appearing. I really had a great time. Learned a lot about your group and what they're doing, and I hope that you guys keep it up. And if I were in school, I would definitely be a member. Unfortunately, I'm primarily self-educated, I guess, now. There's an immense library I have over here. And hope to have you back on in the future.
Well, thanks again for having me. I had a good time.
No problem. I'll see you all tomorrow. Oh, actually, Saturday. Stay tuned Saturday for Tammy Lynn Jessup. She's going to appear on the show Saturday. So tune in Saturday, and tomorrow we'll see what we can do tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by. Talk to you all later.